Crowds grew by the day outside the courthouse. Strangers supporting a woman whose act of bravery became a watershed moment, unleashing a tsunami that echoed throughout France and indeed around the world. Gisèle Pelicot was the victim at the center of what would become one of the most notorious rape trials in French history. And now, for the first time, she's opening up about it all in her memoir, A Hymn to Life, Shame Has to Change Sides. Gisèle's story in her own words, not how we on the outside saw it, but how she lived through it.
Today, I'm doing better. The trial helped me look inward, to take stock, and now I'm trying to build myself back up from these ruins.
Those ruins lie in this small town in the south of France, where she and her husband Dominique had lived. It's also where Gisèle's nightmare took place, and where the seemingly small, peaceful life she shared with her family shattered. Dominique Pelicot was arrested in 2020 after he was caught filming up the skirts of women in a local supermarket. Police seized phones, a laptop, and other devices from him. 2 months later, police show Gisèle photos of her being sexually assaulted by men she has never seen inside her own home. When the police first showed you those images, what went through your mind?
When I see the first 2 photos that Lieutenant Perret shows me, I don't recognize myself. I think, who's this woman? I just see a rag doll, all contorted, completely passed out. And in a way, it's not me. And that's when they tell me that 53 individuals had come to rape me, that they haven't yet been arrested, just Mr. Pelicot, and that now there would be this long process of arrest of these men. And for me, I'm falling down into hell because now I have to go tell this to my kids.
In 2024, Gisèle and her family endured the trial of Dominique Pelicot for months, where he admitted to drugging Gisèle, raping her, and recruiting dozens of men online over the course of a decade to do the same. Inviting them into the couple's home to abuse Gisèle while she was unconscious. He and 50 co-defendants were found guilty of their crimes. Dominique Pelicot was sentenced to 20 years in prison. You make an effort in your book to share the difficulties of Dominique's upbringing, his troubled childhood and family life, which included abuse. It would have been easy for you, Gisèle, to cast him off. But why did you feel people needed to understand this part of the story, where he came from?
Because I think that during the trial, Mr. Pelicot was seen as a monster. They nicknamed him the Wolf of Mazan. I believe he remains a human being who committed monstrous acts. I wanted to explain the story of our life, because he had been a sweet, kind man, shy, a good father, a good grandfather. Everyone loved him. He was always ready to help others. I wanted to show that balance. You can't spend 50 years of your life with a violent man. Obviously, when I found out what he had done to me, it was like a bomb exploded in my life. But I wanted to establish that he hadn't been some monster his whole life.
What made this trial all the more remarkable was a profound decision Gisèle herself made. She had refused to remain in the shadows, waived her right to anonymity, and showed up day in and day out.
It's always the victims that carry shame, not the accused. And I feel that's salt on the wound that we imposed on ourselves. And that fighting this individually, to refuse to feel shame, I was doing it for all of us. I had to do this for all the women that couldn't do it. I also had a certain maturity. I might not have done it at 20 or 30. Today I'm 73. I was 70 at the time of the trial. So I took the dive. There were also all these other victims that hadn't been recognized. And that was important to me, that I didn't feel alone. Every day they were here, in the room, in public spaces, or in the court spaces reserved for the public. And I was happy to offer them my story as an example, and my name as a flag. I was proud of that.
She's proud to have her name serve as a battle flag, but this case was more than symbolic. It was a catalyst for change. Before the Pelicot trial, French law did not require consent to be given before sex. Now it does. Sexual acts done to another without consent constitute rape. And it reignited global conversations about ingrained attitudes, gender violence, and coercive control.
There needs to be a collective acknowledgement that this society, I believe, cultivates denial. And it's important that we evolve. There's a new law on the definition of consent, which we cannot deny is progress, but I think it's a small step in the long journey we're on. So we really have to mobilize for this to stop.
Gisèle Pelicot's impact on French law and society is undeniable. But her story is much bigger than that. Her strength and courage inspired a nation. Now, at 73 years old, Gisèle says she will always be there for women, but aspires to get back to a quiet life for herself. And she's found new love, a partner who's been supportive throughout the trial and beyond.
Well, first, I'm an optimist. Through all the difficult chapters, I've always believed in happiness. And that's essential in my mind, because if there isn't love, I can see why we would be here on Earth. Also, this book carries a message of peace and love. And sure, I didn't think I'd be falling in love again, because after spending those 50 years with the man I shared my life with, and after everything that happened, you could think, well, I'm done with men. But you can just lump all these men together. Because if we did, it would be hard to get along. And I was lucky enough to meet this man with a beautiful soul, and it really changed my life. And I find myself once again in love. So it's important to give that message to all these women who are leery of men. There has to be a message of hope that life goes on, and I'm not looking back, I'm looking forward, and I allow myself to be happy today.
Merci beaucoup. Your strength is admirable, and it is a real pleasure to be able to sit with you and meet you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Merci.